All right, everybody, it's the Combatcast with the man called Dave, Chevy. We're going to talk a little boxing. We're going to talk some MMA. We're going to talk our Mount Rushmore of UFC Lightheavyweights today. Before we do that, please subscribe to our channel if you like us. And Chevy, why don't you tell people what we got coming up?
All right, September 6th, UFC Fight Night, Imavov versus Baralo, 3 p.m. from Paris. That's possible title implications in that one. And then September 13th, UFC Noche, Diego Lopez versus John Silva. That's a very exciting matchup. 6 p.m. from San Antonio, Texas. And then September 20th, doesn't look like there's any UFC fights that weekend either, so we'll probably do what we're doing this week for you. Another Mount Rushmore. We'll pick a new division and do our individual Mount Rushmores for you guys.
Absolutely. And the same night as Lopez and Silva, also going to be Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. So that's just going to be a big night in combat sports in general. So a lot of fun stuff happening here as I share some of this stuff around. So let's get to another boxing announcement, actually. Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis. We don't even know what weight class is going to be at so far. I know it's supposed to be an exhibition fight, I heard. But
there's no way that they're going to weigh the same amount. It's not physically possible.
No, Paul is so much bigger, and again, it's always that one little aspect, right? Like Jake has he's going to box an MMA guy who's not really good at striking, or he's going to box an MMA guy who has really only done limited striking, or he's older, or I'm going to box a guy who has no experience, or a fellow YouTube, or now we got a real boxer in there, but you're like 50, 60 pounds. No, probably more, probably 80 pounds heavier than him. Like Jake's
he's fought from like 170 up to basically a little over 190. So
yeah, I think he's weighing around 200 or something. I saw recently too. So all right, and Gervonta fights at what, 135?
133, I think. Yeah. So clearly Gervonta just won't cut weight, and Jake obviously cannot fight at 190, even if this is an exhibition. He's got to try to get down to the 170, 180.
Yeah. I'm thinking they're going to try to do like between 150 and 180 is going to be where we're at with this, but who knows? I heard some speculation. Basically, it's Gervonta's looking for a payday. Maybe, like there wasn't a lot of payday options. Paul's going to be a payday for him. And so he figured, what the hell? Maybe there's some financial issues going on in his life. I don't know. And figured,
well, yeah, he keeps beating up his girlfriend and getting arrested. So
yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I don't know if that's, that might be causing him some more financial problems. So Jake Paul might be the way to go. Maybe he figures he can just box and stay away. So this will probably be a shit fest. I would imagine it's just going to be him pawing at Jake, staying away.
I don't know if he's going to be able to paw at him. His arms are probably a foot shorter than Jake's arms. This is on Netflix also, I believe, right?
It's on Netflix, which is the one thing I enjoy about this aspect, is that Netflix is the one putting this shit out now. So now, like, if you hear about it and it sounds interesting, we can watch it. Or if you're not doing anything, you can watch it, but you don't have to pay. And I wasn't paying any money anyway. But now, like, you don't even have to have that problem unless you don't have a Netflix account.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I'd say most likely, it's kind of weird to say this, but if this is a legit fight, I guess just because of the size difference, you think Paul would just beat him?
Yeah, I mean, tough to go against Jake Paul at this point. He just keeps winning all these things. So huge weight advantage. I would never say this fight was fixed in any way because I don't want to get sued, but it is an exhibition.
Yeah.
So there is no requirement to go for broke and try to knock each other out. I assume this is going to be kind of a sparring match sort of thing. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Gervonta land some good body shots inside that hurt Jake.
You never know.
I don't think Jake is going to knock him out, but he could. He's big and powerful, and he's much bigger, so he could knock him out, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, he definitely could. And I could see, I mean, Gervonta, highly unlikely, but I would not rule it out of the question that he could knock out Jake Paul too, just because of the skill level.
Yeah.
And who knows if, this goes a few rounds and Paul gets winded, who knows? I actually like what you say better. Maybe if Paul gets winded, it's going to be one of those body shots. You see Paul.
Right. I think it'd be a gentleman's agreement kind of thing where,
Yeah.
Gervonta is like, okay, I'm making a lot of money off this. I'm not going to give you brain damage, but
don't embarrass me out.
Exactly.
I won't case the liver.
I'm sure there's something like that going on. I don't have Netflix, so I won't even be watching this on that. But
so I guess one question for you is then, if in the unlikely scenario, let's say Gervonta knocks out Jake Paul, do you think this is going to pretty much kill all that momentum and hype for him, or does it still? He's still gonna probably fight.
I'm sure there's still fights out there for him. I mean, Gervonta does have unreal power, so I don't think it would be that surprising.
But the thing was, he made a comment, I'm gonna like slay David and go after Goliath. So the talk is after this, I think that he's gonna fight Anthony Joshua.
That's what he wants you to think and be talking about. Yeah. So if he gets in there with Anthony Joshua, I mean, it should be an execution. He's a gold medalist, heavyweight world champion. There's not enough time in the world for Jake to catch up at that point. So, yeah.
Not at all. Yeah, you're right. I don't see that happening.
Be a great payday, and all the respect for Jake Paul. If that does happen, he gets in there with him. But that would be a bad idea for his health. He doesn't need any more money. All you're getting out of that is brain damage. So,
knock the fuck out.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get on to some real fights then. Let's talk about it. UFC Fight Night, Walker versus Zhang. Ortega versus Sterling almost didn't happen, but it did. Any fights on the undercard? I only saw Cohen Main.
Yeah, so I didn't get up to watch these because they were on at like 3 o'clock in the morning. But last week I did highlight Michelle Pereira versus Kyle Dawkins. Kyle Dawkins knocked him out with his hands, which was not what I anticipated, but great fight nonetheless. Round 1 KO for Dawkins. And then Lonier Kavanaugh versus Charles Johnson. I highlighted that one as well. Another great knockout. Charles Johnson, round 2 knockout. He said afterwards that his bank account was in the red. He fights like 5 times a year, so that just is a bad look for the UFC, obviously, or he's very bad with his money, or he's got a lot of kids or something, or a new house or something. I don't know. He shouldn't be in the red either way.
Yeah.
But he got a bonus, so hopefully that helps him out. But let's get this main card. We'll talk about just the Sergey Pavlovich versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. Nobody went to sleep. It was a bummer. Sergey won a decision, but he's lost like all that aura he had before he fought Tom Aspinall, and it's very sad. So we don't even need to go into it anymore. We can just move on. So, all right, let's talk about Brian Ortega, Aljamain Sterling.
Okay, let's talk about how I ended up remembering this was on super early in the morning. I went on vacation this week for a little day up to Hampton Beach, and I was working early in the morning. And then I think it was you or one of our other friends in our group chat talking about how washed Ortega was. And I'm like, quickly remember, download ESPN to my phone, started watching it. Thought it was in round 3. I didn't know it was a 5-round fight. I was in the last.
Me either.
Yeah. And Ortega, funny though, when I came in there though, around 5, Ortega starts taking some chances. Ortega had, a few brief moments there where it looked like he was trying to do some stuff. And I was like, oh, maybe he's going to turn this around. But no. Sterling gets him down, and then Ortega starts trying to. It's always a bad idea to see guys trying to strike from the bottom. Generally, there are rare exceptions, and this was interesting because he was getting some good shots off on Sterling, but it was really reckless. And I thought maybe he's trying to create the triangle choke, but Sterling, kind of what we thought about at this stage in the game. He had enough wrestling to kind of avoid the submission attempts, and his striking was better from what I saw. Now, you saw the majority of the fight, and it sounded like Ortega looked pretty bad in the beginning of this.
Yeah, well, first of all, it was at a catch weight because Brian
Right.
couldn't make weight. It was at a 153 catch weight. So that was not good. I mean, clearly he shouldn't be cutting down to featherweight anymore. He should be at lightweight anyway. He should get one shot at lightweight. And if he loses again, he should call it quits because he just, I know he had a bad weight cut and that can affect a lot, but he just doesn't look the same anymore to what he used to. And in every single fight, he just takes so much damage, which being real tough is great during your career, but afterwards it affects the rest of your life. So, I just don't want to see it anymore, to be honest with you. So the fight was kind of stupid. Aljo stuck and moved. He got on top once in a while, but there was really not a lot of grappling. Ortega didn't try to take him down at all. So, my wife went for a walk, so he's got to be in the room. But, so it's a bummer. Good job for Aljo. He called for a title shot, which I don't know if he's gonna get that, but he has been around long enough that you could give it to him.
You could. I don't think this just because of there's some other fighters out there with a little more momentum. I think, if Jean Silva ends up beating Diego, he could end up getting a shot. What's his name? Just beat Aaron Pico last week there. Leon.
Lerone Murphy.
Lerone Murphy.
Yeah, he's probably next in line.
Yeah, he's probably next. I would say, Silva, if he finishes Lopez, could cut that line too. I guess if that's a boring fight, you could talk about it. I think Sterling's looking at maybe a Yair Rodriguez or an Arnold Allen next. I think those would be two good fights for him.
Both very fun fights, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I favor Aljo in either one of those, but
no, I don't either.
He just finds a way to win. So we'll see.
Yeah, get that title shot and see if you can just pull it off. But there's some dangerous opponents there potential either way for him. But I think it's going to have to be that way probably.
Yep. All right, let's talk about this main event, which obviously did not go the way that we anticipated here. Johnny Walker versus Zhang Mingyang.
Walker said there's levels to this game, and unfortunately for Zhang, there is. And Walker was above him. And Zhang came out so wild, aggressive, ready to put on him. It worked. And it was just funny because I thought, well, Walker's probably going to get connected to one of these because that's just what usually happens. And he's a little bit reckless. But Walker kept being evasive. And I'm watching this, for I was like, he could tire him out. I'm like, what's the odds? I think what's the odds? He's gonna damper it. I'm thinking and then sure enough, and then we got to round 2. He rocked him, and then you could tell Zhang did not look like he had ever been in that position before too. He was covering up, but not in a way that looked, he looked like he was in trouble. He looked bad, and in the end, Walker spoils that main event for everybody and gets the big win. And hey, good for him. I was looking at his record, man. He's kind of fought everybody, though. It's kind of like, the guy I would have him fight next is a little bit behind him, so I don't think he'd want to do it, but it probably makes the most sense. Would be like Alonzo Menafield next. I think that would be a fun fight.
That'd be fun, yeah.
Yeah. And he can get a big win off of him. Then you're looking at maybe some rematches and getting yourself in the picture, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so Walker sent all the Chinese fans home sad. Obviously, I noticed in that first round the leg kicks were bothering Zhang, and when Johnny landed that last one in round 2, he knew it was over. He just jumped all over him, rushed him. So, I was very happy for Johnny because I thought for sure that he was going to get brutally KO'd in the first round. But he always has that power, and he's moved his camp again. He was at SBG for a long time, and now he's moved to Extreme Couture or something, I think. He's moved to Sean Strickland's camp basically in Vegas and with Eric Nixick. Yeah. So, could be a whole new life for him. He looked like old Johnny Walker where he was kind of reckless and he threw a lot of crazy stuff, but a little bit more reserved where he was conserving a little bit of energy and he, had some good head movement. He didn't take any real big shots from Zhang. So, Yeah, good on Johnny Walker. I'm sure Zhang will be back and knock the next guy out in the first round, though.
Oh yeah, he's a killer.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to the big thing of the show today. Our UFC Mount Rushmore of light heavyweights. All right, so we're gonna look at this light heavyweight division, UFC Mount Rushmore. That's for Chevy. We didn't talk about this at first, but you want me just to give you my 4? And then
Yeah, give me your 4, and then I'll tell you all the ones I agree with.
I'm pretty sure we're going to agree on a lot of these. It's a question. I feel like we'll have a difference of at least 1, maybe 2. We'll see how we go. All right. At the top, the guy we don't really care for too much on this channel, but we know he's the greatest light heavyweight. It's Jon Jones. This guy is already in the UFC Hall of Fame for a fight with Alexander Gustafsson. He's let's see, he's a heavyweight champion already now. His light heavyweight credentials, though, 2-time champ, 11 successful title defenses, 8 successful title defenses during his first reign, most successful defenses in UFC light heavyweight division. You look at
he was the youngest UFC champion.
Youngest UFC champion ever, yeah. But you look at guys like, UFC legends, Shogun, Rampage, Machida,
Glover.
This guy, he beat them all in their prime. Gustafsson, we're going to talk about another guy who's on a Mount Rushmore, who Jones obviously beat on this list too, in my opinion, is a Mount Rushmore. But Gustafsson could be a Mount Rushmore UFC light heavyweight in another universe if there was Jon Jones. You know what I mean? So, yeah, he deserves it. Not much of a Mount Rushmore in terms of his outside activities. He's done everything he can, it would seem, to screw up his career. But if you just look at overall talent, even with the potential drugs and all that, and I say potential, but obviously he's already been busted for steroids. But even more, I'm just saying, there's still, you cannot deny this guy's talent. So number 1,
basically undefeated.
Yeah, never lost other than a weird DQ. All right, number 2 for me, Chuck Liddell, and the reason why I went Chuck Liddell. Not necessarily in terms of he was more talented than the third guy on my list. However, before there was a Jon Jones, before UFC was really taken off and was the ultimate fighter to put on the map, if you went into a gas station somewhere, there was a Chuck Liddell poster going nuts on energy drinks and everything. He was the star at one point of the UFC. Part of it was his feud with Tito Ortiz that really kind of captured everybody. And he was the man over Tito earlier in his career. I believe they fought 3 times, once late in their career where Chuck was a shell and Tito won that. But the first 2, Chuck laid him out. And, Chuck what did Chuck have here? He's a Hall of Famer in the Pioneer ring, Fight Night 2 times, UFC lightweight champ, 4 successful title defenses, second most title fight wins in UFC light heavyweight division history. So, Chuck was a superstar. He was the superstar in the UFC at one time. So number 2,
first real superstar in the UFC.
Absolutely. Number 3, Daniel Cormier. All right. You like Jon Jones. You probably don't like Daniel Cormier. You like Daniel Cormier. You don't like Jon Jones. Doesn't really matter because when you look at it in terms of talent, Daniel Cormier is probably the next best light heavyweight in the history of MMA next to Jon Jones. Like, if there's no Jon Jones, then it's Cormier and maybe Gus. We talk about Gustafsson. Cormier had an awesome fight with Gustafsson too that was really back and forth. I feel bad for Gustafsson, know? But he's a guy, light heavyweight champion, heavyweight champion. You name it, champion in Strikeforce, Olympian. Amazing credentials, but in the end of the day, I had to put him at number 3 in terms of talent. He's number 2 in terms of star power. I went with 3, given Chuck Liddell's earlier success. And number 4, I went a little old school again on this, looking at more like star power. Chuck Liddell was that guy, another guy kind of right there to me. I thought about Tito. I ended up going Randy Couture because Randy was such in that old school, winning the tournaments, won like the heavyweight tournament, and then also was a light heavyweight champion. And Randy was the first guy to do 2 divisions. All right. He was the first to win a heavyweight and a light heavyweight championship. And nobody had done that until Conor McGregor, then Cormier, and then Nunes, and then whoever else we got now.
Cejudo. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So, so to me, Randy rounded up my Mount Rushmore for light heavyweights. All right. What do you have? What do we agree on? What do we got here?
All right, so obviously John Jones, yes, greatest of all time, youngest UFC champion. He cleared out lightweight before moving up and getting the heavyweight belt. Basically undefeated while mastering all aspects of MMA, including cheating.
Yeah.
Master of that. Terrible human being, but yes, greatest of all time. DC, became simultaneous 2-division champion, which I don't know if anyone else was simultaneous 2-division champion. Cejudo might have done both at the same time as well, but DC actually defended both belts while holding them as well. So, and his rivalry with John Jones elevated John to greatest of all time status. He was on his way for sure. He beat a lot of guys in his prime, but DC helped elevate him. So if there was no John Jones, we could be talking about DC as the greatest of all time. For me, I put Mighty Mouse up there, probably ahead of both of them, honestly. But on a lot of people's lists, they'd be 1 and 2. So I'm with you. Number 3, Chuck Liddell. Chuck, pioneer of the sport, built the UFC brand before Conor McGregor and John Jones. So the first real superstar in the UFC as a KO specialist, with that sprawl and brawl style he had. And then I went a little bit different. I didn't go with Randy, although that is a great pick. I picked Glover Teixeira. So, Glover, a lot of what Glover did in his career happened before he got to the UFC, unfortunately. He had some visa issues or something, but there was a point where he won 20 fights in a row between 2006 and 2013. And then after all that time, he's fighting all these great legends in their prime as well. He became UFC champ at 42, beating Jan Blachowicz. So shout out to Glover for sure. And plus, now he's the coach of arguably the biggest superstar in the UFC currently in Alex Pereira.
Absolutely. Yeah. Glover, he's had a lot of credentials. And when you think about it too, I think, but really thinking about it, just winning that so late in his career too. It's very impressive. Arby even got better as his career went on too. Yeah. I guess we'll wrap this up with a couple of fan questions here. Randy Oscar, Ken Shamrock's a legend, but also, does John Jones fight again? We'll end on that. Does John Jones fight again? I think he does. I think he'll end up being in there. Does he? I don't know if he fights Tom Aspinall. Maybe. What I mean? But I think, he'll end up with a fight.
No, I don't think he fights Tom Aspinall either. I think the only way you see John Jones fight is if the UFC gets Francis back in the UFC. And I don't think that will happen. But I think that's the only fight that brings John Jones out of whatever he is. I know he's in the testing pool and he wants to fight at the White House, but Dana basically already said that's not happening, which we know Dana's a promoter and he could just be challenging John and trying to give him motivation to work to get back. But there's nothing he could do to trust him to put on that card, to be honest with you. So, no, I don't think we see him again.
Also, too, I have to say, it's interesting you say Francis, because I imagine that Francis it's a big enough name, but also John probably feels with Francis' lack of wrestling, he could exploit that a little more than Tom. So I think
more favorable matchup for more money. Yeah.
I think that would definitely be the fight. Can't blame him there, but it's also disheartening that we may never get that Tom fight. We basically have to hope that Francis, if they can get him back, if they're willing to, knocks out John, and maybe they'll do Francis and Tom, and then we could have that.
Well, I could blame John for not giving Tom a shot, because when John was 23 and he got a shot at the belt against Shogun was not young, so he's just out there protecting his legacy, which, you're going to do what you're going to do. But I think he's hurting it by being wishy-washy. If you're going to retire, then do what Khabib did and just retire.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, let's end this podcast with some John Jones hate. You know, trash human being, great fighter.
Let's tell people we got coming up one more time.
All right. September 6th, UFC Fight Night. Imavov versus Barajo. Let's go fight nerds. 3 p.m. from Paris. And then September 13th, UFC Noche. No Mexicans on the main fight here. Lopez versus Silva. 6 p.m. from San Antonio. We'll also be talking about Crawford and Canelo. Very excited for that boxing match. And then September 20th, we'll be doing another Mount Rushmore. We'll pick another division. If you guys have a preference, you know, hit us up on Twitter or Instagram or in the comments here on YouTube.